some confidence in understanding the historical numbers. Make sure you understand what your P&L is telling you. Make sure you understand what the balance sheet is telling you. And then once you have that, then turn that into the ability to look forward and picture where you're going, and see if the numbers bear it out, and then work your plan to get where you want to get.
Hey there, my name is Amanda Ferris, and if we haven't met yet, welcome in. I'm so glad you're here. In this video, you get a little sneak peek behind the scenes action with my conversation with Roger Scherping. And he has many years of financial and general management experience. He's operated as a CFO, a COO, a general manager, president. He's successfully grown companies from where they are to up to $20 million in sales, and many of these companies were in a challenging position. So he's helped to turn those around. He is a licensed CPA, and his mastermind, he's not a wizard, he's not a magician, but it would be hard to tell that because he's created this amazing software called ProjectionSmart. And with that, he helps small business owners and advisors, business coaches, the gamut. There's so many people that he helps with this software to project their future, to forecast for the future, to plan for the future. So if you are a business owner and you're curious or wondering or even anxious about the future, and you want to have some sort of clear plan and maybe even a contingency plan or two to help make sure that you can have peace of mind as you operate your business as it is today, no matter what's happening, that you can have those plans in place to run an effective business and not be burnt out in the process. So come on into our conversation. We'll see you there. For the benefit of anyone who hasn't heard of it, and how that might be a good companion to QuickBooks or whatever systems they have or don't have, how this could be beneficial.
Sure. So I spent about 20 years turning around small companies. Some of them were struggling and some of them were downright turnarounds, like almost out of business. And I was always able to turn them around and get them back on their feet. And one day I looked back across all those experiences and I realized, there's one thing I did in all of them that really contributed to my being successful. And that is I was able to look into the future. I'm a CPA and I'm good at spreadsheets. So I could just sit down and I could figure out, well, when will we start making a profit? When will we start to cash flow? Will we need a bank loan? When can we add this or that? And I could just run the numbers on it and I could see, and it really contributed to our being successful. And I later realized, every small company should do this. Even if you're not in trouble, you should always be looking forward. You don't drive your car looking through the rearview mirror. You look at it once in a while, but you spend your time looking forward. So why should it be any different when you run your business? Why do you always look backwards with your QuickBooks numbers? So I looked around for tools that would help the kind of company I always helped, which is companies under 10 million, run by someone who does not have a finance or accounting background and who doesn't have a controller or a CFO to help them. And I looked for tools and there really weren't any. I mean, there are a lot of tools. If your company's here, will get you to the next level. But there was nothing for the person at the lowest level who has no knowledge and no help. So I just saw an opportunity to create a tool that did that. And that's what I did, created something for the small business owner to use that would that they could use to look into the future.
It's so phenomenal. So how long has ProjectionSmart been around for?
It's been a few years. I'll admit I'm not the world's greatest entrepreneur. I've made every mistake that you can possibly make at least once. The smartest two things I did was I eventually put together a board of advisors. I found 3 people on my network, one who was a serial entrepreneur who had founded many companies. One is a top marketing person, and one was a SaaS entrepreneur. So he understood software as a service. And I sat the 3 of them down and I said, guys, I need help. What am I supposed to do? And they gave me a lot of good advice on how to restructure the business, the product, the promotion, do all that. But then to my own credit, I also was doing some just routine networking one day, and I talked to a guy at a fintech company. And I was telling him my frustrations, and he almost started laughing. And I said, what's so funny? He goes, you're describing us. He said, we tried to sell our product to the small business owner. we thought this product is so good, the small business owners are all going to see it and go, oh, I need this. And they'd go out and buy it. And we gave up on that because it didn't work. And he said, what we finally figured out is you can't sell to the small business owner because they're not close enough to this sort of thing. They don't understand it. You got to sell to their trusted advisors, the people who are going to go, yeah, you need this, and let me show you why. And then I'll work with you and make it happen. So that was the big pivot that we made late last year. And we've got the product and everything aligned, and now we're trying to get to those trusted advisors.
So from the people that have in your close orbit used this already, when do you start to see I mean, obviously it's going to be contingent on people using it and not just having it, but do they start to see tangible results or those aha moments, like 3 months, 6 months on average? Obviously there's like going to be different models and different results, but I'm just curious if there's like a common theme or thread that you're seeing with people.
Yeah, I guess the most common thing is once the light bulb comes on, they're sold. They're like, oh my God, where's this been all my life? One successful entrepreneur that I met with, I showed it to him and he looked up at me with big eyes and he goes, I didn't even know it was possible to do an analysis like this. It never occurred to him that you could look forward. We have probably our oldest user on ProjectionSmart is a woman who owns her own a business. She has a franchise with several locations. And I watch, she's in there every month on like the second day of the month and she updates her numbers. So she's always looking 12 months ahead. And I talked to her about it and she goes, I couldn't live without this. She goes, I need to know where I'm going. I need to know what the future looks like. And we just met in person a week ago because she's about to open her third location. And she wanted me to sit down with her and go through and, well, how do I put this in? How do I make sure I can really see with 3 locations? And what do I put in for revenue and expenses? And we did it all. And we were there for about an hour and she shut her laptop and goes, okay, I get it. And she was really confident about what was going to happen.
Which is completely the opposite feeling of manically checking your bank account and hoping and wishing and praying. maybe
I get
someday.
I get a kick out of that. I'll ask an entrepreneur, well, what's your cash situation? And they pull up their phone and they go, oh, my balance is X. No, that's not what I mean. I mean, how do things look in the next 60, 90, 120 days? And they go, oh, I have no idea. One of my favorite stories was showing this to an entrepreneur, a different entrepreneur who owned franchises or a franchise. He opened his first location and he had me come over to look at it. And I'm walking through and I'm going, hey, this is really cool. How are you going to know when it's the right time to open the second one? And he looked at me, shrugged his shoulders and said, I don't know. He just had no idea of how to even calculate that or determine it. He was just going to go with his gut.
Oh my gosh, that seems like a journey riddled with anxiety and possibly some blood pressure medication involved with that.
Yes.
Wow.
There's nothing like the unknown to give you anxiety. But if you can take a shot at a prediction of where you think you're going to be, it's probably not going to be perfect, but just get an idea of what it's going to look like, or do an analysis of what you think is the most likely to happen, and then do a what if that we do really well, and then, well, what if the bottom falls out? So you have 3 different views of what the future might look like, and you can, once you have it in numbers, okay, you can probably relax a little bit, as you say.
Well, just even knowing, even if the plan is going to change and you're going to be rerouted, to have the peace of mind that there was a plan created before a crisis occurred, and you can just go to your plan, and it's kind of like time traveling, like to that past self, like, what did I want to do again? And you're not like operating in grief or some sort of altered state of mind because of whatever's happening. It's amazing. So when I was introduced to your product and I was like, okay, this is so perfect for probably 99.5% of the people I've ever worked with and work with currently, because they're that small business owner under $10 million in gross annual revenue, and they have an accountant maybe, but that doesn't necessarily, and that poor CPA or that poor accountant where, the business owner's like, well, you gave me the numbers. What do I do now? And they're like, I'm not equipped
Yes.
to tell you what to do with your business. Like, I'm just helping you with this part of it to make sure everything's accurate, right? So that's a conundrum a little bit. And I think a lot of small business owners get into the operational kind of routine where they don't know how to think about their business even differently.
Right.
Once they're out of that startup phase, they're like, oh, hey, I'm ready for revenue. And then either they're still in that I need to get revenue stage, or it's taken off and now they're just holding on for dear life. Like, I just need to get through just 2 more weeks and then it'll be fine. And then 2 weeks passes, 2 more weeks, I'll be fine. It's like, then the year is gone and you're, basically bound to looking at that financial sheet. And it's like, what happened? And it doesn't matter how many coaches or any CPAs you had or bookkeepers or whatever, intentions went out the window because real life happened and so did real business, right? So I love that this really grounds, and it's not rocket science, it just makes it simple and easy. And it's like, I don't have to fly away to some other coast to meet with a board to figure this stuff out. It's like 30 minutes a month, maybe, once you get the hang of it, is what it seemed like. And it was interesting what you just shared about the lady who just, second day of the month or so, she's just like right in there doing the thing. And like, it just becomes like second nature when you start checking the pulse, right? Checking the vitals. But that gap between like where a business owner is right now, just, holding on for dear life in the rat race, and to that stable routine to rely on, is like a huge pendulum swinging, like that self-doubt, imposter syndrome, all of those crazy things. So I think that just getting into this practice of, not only am I putting in my numbers like a QuickBooks to reconcile last month and make sure that the stuff's accurate, but being able to go, okay, now what are we going to do with this information so we can make strategic choices. And maybe not even so much on the the financial side is absolutely critical. I mean, that's why we're talking here. But also, if the way a business owner is making money for their business, their only revenue driver or the primary revenue driver is them being the product or the service to somebody, that sounds exhausting. Like, you have a capacity to how much you can put out there. So if you can look ahead and you're seeing, oh my goodness, I need to do this many sessions, or I need to do this many, it's like, oh my gosh, that seems so exhausting. And I don't want to budget my energy for that. It seems like the uphill battle never ends. It just keeps going higher and higher. And, we're human, we have limited, energy resources. So I think being able to have this routine is also something that can help generate that energy to go, yeah, I've got it in me for another month, or maybe I should introduce a different product that is more profitable, or something that's like that other passive income that is replicating my logic in a different way. So I don't have to be the hamster on the wheel so much, just
Another way to say is, you do that prediction and it shows you the path you're on. Maybe that path is good, maybe it's not, but you're looking 12 months out. You can make changes now that impact where you're going to be in 12 months. Like you say, well, maybe I need to change start a new product, or maybe I need to bump my price or cut my costs, or whatever I need to do to change that path of where I want to end up. It's kind of hard to tell where you're shooting, if you don't look at the target, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
If you don't know where you're going, how will you know when you get there? So you got to have an idea of where you're going, and then maybe you're okay with getting there, or maybe you want to get somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like to, from the demo I've already seen, it just seems like I don't have to be a genius in this financial, like I can be genius at my technician job, or my whatever my business is. But if I can like rely on the frameworks, the system that you have to just put the one data entry field at a time, and then generate it, it's not so overwhelming. And it's kind of fun. Like, it's really fun, to see like, oh, what could I be doing? And, where do we want to take this? And it kind of like reinvigorates that like first reason why you started the business, of that possibility that we kind of forget about when we're just fulfilling orders, right? And what's really cool too about the tool is, well, really any tool or framework that helps you shave off onerous admin and time and frustration and worry sometimes like when we're in our business trying to manage it, we feel like we've done a ton and we're being productive, but we have really just done the equivalent of like digital paper shuffling, and it isn't really helping us. It might just be feeding into that anxiety. But it seems like what you're talking about with more billable, hours or services, it's like
Mhm.
you're cutting through the nonsense of what normally would have taken me in the past to work with a small business owner or manager, in kind of a four walls establishment of looking around the business, like
Mhm.
looking under the equipment, looking at the
Mhm.
receipts, trying to do all this manual analog stuff and try to
Mhm.
be that investigator. That's really time consuming. And it also makes you feel like what surprise is going to hop out at me, where this just takes all of that away. And it's like, just put the stuff in there. So I'm curious if you would be willing to give me like a high level overview of what this looks like for somebody who is either the individual that's using ProjectionSmart or the person who's like in my shoes, where I, help a lot of different types of business owners and different varying, the small business owner can mean so many things, right? It could be like
Sure.
your freelance side gig, person who's doing something, just on the weekends or the evenings. And then you have your people who are looking to exit their firm in 5 years and maybe even turn their business into a franchise, but they're still under that, $10 million revenue mark. So they're not technically like a mid-sized business yet. So,
Mhm.
but this seems like a structure that could help automate some things and also help them, whatever those stages are. So, is that something that we can talk about right now?
Sure. You want to know the process of how it works?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen the
Yes.
demo of like the ProjectionSmart, like the process. So
Okay.
like for a more high level day in the
Yeah.
life. So you mentioned a couple of references. So normally, for example, I work with people and we'll go in. I'm assuming that they reconcile their previous month the first week of the month. And so the second week is usually when it's like, okay, let's talk about financials, not so much. I mean, yeah, your P&L, that's great. That's important. We need to take a look at cash flow and those types of things. But what do these numbers mean? Like, let's unpack it,
Yeah.
figure out what worked, what didn't, what do we want to do differently? And then how does that translate into action, tangible results?
Sure.
How are we going to make that happen? And then we talk about other things in the previous weeks, but that's kind of
Sure.
the rhythm. So when you think about ProjectionSmart for a small business owner, just that like single owner, they're also the manager, they're also the person who
Mhm.
fulfills the orders. Where
Yeah.
does this fit into their schedule and their
Sure.
life?
It can easily fit in with their monthly financial review. So let's say they have an outside accountant who dutifully turns in on the 5th of the month, 10th of the month. They go, okay, I got your P&L done. Here it is. Here's what happened last month. Um, so they would be able to look backwards. And if this accountant is good, they're not just giving them a report, they're walking through it with them. They're saying, see what happened to cost of goods sold? It went up. So that caused your margins to drop, or its sales drop. I identified it to these categories, explaining what happened. So the person is helping them do all that. And that might take 30 minutes or an hour, for them to go through and truly understand what happened. And at that point, the trusted advisor says, okay, you got it? All right. That's what happened in the past. Now we're going to sit down with ProjectionSmart. And they would bring up the program. And I do everything in threes because everybody likes threes. So the first one is history. We want to get some financial history. We want to have this rolling 12-month forecast, and we want to keep a history too, because we want to compare to see how we're doing against history. So we're going to use, assuming that you use QuickBooks Online, which most people do, we would just, the program would just go out to QuickBooks and just download all your history. So we'd have 12 months of balance sheet history, 12 months of P&L history. That's easy. So we just download that. Then we need to take a shot at understanding, well, what do you think is going to happen in the next 12 months? And at very high level, just month by month, how much do you think sales will be? How much will your margin be month by month? And what will your overhead be month by month? And the person might have a hard time doing that, but because a lot of small companies don't budget, they don't budget. Sometimes they'll say, well, what did we do last year? Let's just try to do better than last year. That's okay. We got a button. You push this button and it takes last year and it drops it into this year. And it says, okay, here's your budget for this year. Now we can make changes to it. You could say, well, this was a bad month. It won't be so bad. Let's bump that up. We had some big expenses here. Let's take those out. So there, we just did a high level budget for the next 12 months. And we hit the next button, and that's the second part is done. And then the third part, and this would work really well when the trusted advisor is working with the business owner to fill it out, is we're just going to go over 9 questions. And they're not going to be technical. They're not going to be accounting. They're just going to be, tell me about your business. So the first one, for example, is, do you plan to buy any property or equipment, any long-term assets for your business? Could be equipment, cars, anything, software, any large purchases that would last a number of years. And if you say yes, we have a field where you put it in. Well, I'm going to buy a car here. I'm going to buy a new computer here. Just plan it out. What's your 12-month plan for purchasing assets? And hit next. Second question is, what is your depreciation every month that you record in your books? So you might get that from your tax guy, or maybe this is your tax guy. I don't know, but the tax guy says, yeah, put in $1,000 a month for depreciation. I'll skip. Then there's some about intangibles, which are kind of uncommon, but then we get into the debt questions. Credit cards. Most small businesses that I've seen, virtually all of them carry an ongoing credit card balance. They finance their business on credit cards. So it appears as a line on the balance sheet in QuickBooks. So I'm the trust advisor. I ask my client, well, what are you going to do about the credit cards this year? Maybe they go, this is the year I'm going to pay them off. All right, let's program in pay down for the next 12 months. We're going to get those paid off. Let's program that into your prediction. And then we do the same thing for short-term debt, long-term debt, and then a couple of equity questions. The last equity question is, do you plan to take any money out of the business? I don't mean your salary. I mean like a dividend. Like maybe I need to take out money for taxes. Or if your business isn't doing well, maybe you got to put some money in. That happens too, right? So that's it. 9 questions, and you push a button, and then that's the third component. It's complete. And then we pop up 7 graphs, because all entrepreneurs told me, don't show me reports. I don't understand reports. Show me graphs. So the 7 graphs are projected cash balance and your projected monthly cash flow, that is good months and bad months. And then your 3 biggest cash flow drivers are always receivables, inventory, and payables. So we have those programmed in, so you can see those. And then your budgeted sales and budgeted net income. And those are all done behind the scenes, just based on the simple questions that you answered about your business. I tell you firsthand from doing these things for clients is they can't live without it. They don't know how they got by without it in the past. You show them their P&L for the month, and they're like, okay, good, I get that. But now let's look at the projection. I want to see where we're going. I want to see the future. Their orientation changes. I'm sure they have to look backwards. They have to understand, but they want to see, well, where are we going to be in 12 months? You know how much cash will I have? Will I be able to take any money out? How high will our sales be? They want to know the future. They never knew you could do this sort of a thing, but once they learn it, they can't live without it.
Yeah. A lot of business owners who believe the false belief that is that they don't have time to manage their business from this level. And so with that, come objections like, I can't afford to hire an advisor. It's like, well, my job to me is not to just take people's money and be a service. I want to help you more than recoup this, because you're doing something important in our community. Even if your community across the country or the world, I think entrepreneurship, however you define that, is what keeps our society really in order, because DC is a mess. If we look at like getting any sort of change enacted in legislation, it's going to take a long time for anything. On an economic scale, though, there is a lot of power on a, and it can be used either way. But if a business is doing good in their community by being profitable, providing jobs, providing a safe and sound service or product, that's what keeps communities thriving. And that also provides the potential injection of lifeblood, or whether that's funding to help make those bigger changes happen. I'm really excited just to connect with you, because this is the type of stuff that does help people change things, like life-changing stuff. If they understand it doesn't have to take a long time to know like they've got a little bit of control in their life and in their business, and that it's just going to be like probably a couple of months of having that laser beam focus for an hour a month, doing the thing, doing the other activities that, you know, contribute, and then to spark that belief, but also change how, I like how you said it, you know, changing the orientation of how they look at their business, how they look toward the future versus, you know, the rearview mirror. And I think, you know, my personal mission is to serve as many businesses as possible, but it's also like, now I feel this conviction. Well, like, I can't just let this be a secret. We got to tell people about this ProjectionSmart software.
To talk about visionaries. I work in my consulting business. I work with a lot of visionaries, and I'm just fascinated with these people. They can see the future. They can see around corners. I don't know how they do it. And when I work with them, I have to stop because I'm a very literal. I go from A to B to C to D. Don't go from A to D because you're going to lose me. But visionaries do that. They can do that. I don't know how they do that. So I'm not a visionary, and I'm an accountant. And do accountants usually start businesses? Not usually. But it's like you said, I saw a need for this based on the companies I had worked with. It was just really obvious to me that this is something companies really need. And I said, this is something I could do. And so that's why I'm this accountant became a visionary, because I could just clearly see the need, and I saw the solution at the same time. I mean, I saw how to do this. And I guess the last thought would be simplicity. You used the word simplicity. I appreciate that, because I told my developer right from the beginning, I said, first of all, this has to work. But secondly, it has to be simple. We can't force these small business owners to become accountants or think like accountants or ask them accounting questions, because we're going to lose them. They're going to have no interest in it. Yeah. So we have to think like them. We have to think like, I own this business and I understand this business. And I can answer questions like, am I planning to buy another truck in the next year? Or do I have debt that I want to pay down? Those are questions business owners can answer because it's their business, and they know the answer to those questions. So I appreciate your saying the word simplicity a couple of times, because that's been a really core value of what we've been trying to do, is keep it simple. I show the product to people and they go, oh, you should add this, and you should add that, and you should add that. And I go, I could add them, but I have to balance, you know, what making it more complex versus keeping it simple. And for the time being, I want to keep it simple.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Because it's like, there are so many very intelligent business owners, but that simplicity doesn't mean they're not smart. It's
right.
They're prioritizing, is this onerous admin, or do I need to go make hay while the sun is shining? Is this going to help me pay the bills today and survive to see another week and keep the lights on and make payroll? Or is this just a nice to have mindset woo-woo thing? You know?
Yeah, the tough sell is it's hard to say, point to specifically how this will help you, right? You need to do this because you'll be able to see your future. Yeah, okay, yeah, fine, you know, but do it a couple times and you look ahead and you start seeing, oh, I can kind of see where this is going. Or, geez, I'm glad I looked at this, because 3 months from now, I can see I'm going to have a problem. I better jump on that now. I always say you can't call your banker on Thursday night and go, I can't make payroll tomorrow. It doesn't work that way. You got to find these problems ahead of time, and you got to get out ahead of them.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because when you say the term, you know, seeing the future, it seems kind of like philosophical and non-tangible. And yet, in this sense, it's making your business ready for revenue or not. It's, am I ready? Do I have the staff for that surge we're going to see? Are they going to be trained in time? Have I even hired them? How long is my sales cycle? So many business owners don't even know that, like, you know, and it changes with every product, right? And we're not tracking that sort of thing when we're just kind of like in that intermediate stage of, this is working. Am I, you know, pinched myself as, you know, so it's like the other side of it, I think you mentioned a few times, of being able to see, oh, there might be another event, capital expense, a thing that, are we ready for when it rains? when
Mhm.
when a crisis hits, are we prepared for that? And what's our game plan? And we can't contextualize that if we're like, well, that's a lot of what ifs. It's like, actually, if you have the numbers, you can create scenarios that are, it's like a simulation almost of like,
Mhm.
let's play out the scenario. How are we going to react? And, if we were doing a postmortem, well, how would we react to that? So that,
You said the word startup a few times. I haven't even mentioned that as you go through the process, there's a point where we ask, is this company launched or not? So for a startup business, you get push that button and you say not launched. Well, we'll help with that process too, in the sense that you tell us what your startup costs are. We already have your budget. So we can do a cash flow analysis right out of the chute that says you do or do not have enough money to even launch. It'll tell you how much money you have to have in the business to open the doors. And once you say, okay, here are my plans to finance the business, then we'll let you go on and plan the rest of the business.
I love it. I have so many ideas talking with you too, just about how to even explain this to somebody, which is awesome. So, because normally I think people can get really myself included, really intimidated when we talk about like financial terms. It's like, I don't like, and then it's like we just shut down and it's like, I'm gonna go do something else that I feel like I can have.
Well, you said you watched some of my videos where I explained what a balance sheet is. Never in there did I say debit and credit, or never did I say assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. I talked about it like a house, and what you own and what you owe and how much equity you have in your house. And that's kind of the philosophy I've used throughout, is speaking the language of the user, not making them become an accountant.
Yeah, and that's so appreciated. This would help get them traction in their business and tangible results that, whether, in the future, if we work together or not, doesn't matter. We've been able to really get these essential skills down so that they can continue to build value in their lives and in their business. So the first one we're kicking off next Wednesday at 1:00, and we're going to talk about financials. And then the next week we're talking about operations, and then the next week we're talking about marketing.
Build some confidence in understanding the historical numbers. Make sure you understand what your P&L is telling you. Make sure you understand what the balance sheet is telling you. And then once you have that, then turn that into the ability to look forward and picture where you're going, and see if the numbers bear it out, and then work your plan to get where you want to get. I guess it's kind of a lot. I mean, it's kind of, maybe that's kind of a lot it sounds like a lot to put on somebody, but honestly, it's not that hard. And people get so intimidated by finances and numbers. And believe me, CPAs are no smarter than anybody else. It may be an orientation, I get that, but it's not that hard to understand. If you have the right person walking you through it, someone who can really say it in your terms, make it simple so that you understand it, you'll be surprised. I mean, I've had people say, I'll never understand that. And I spend a couple minutes with them and they go, oh, well, okay, I get that. And it's really not that intimidating or scary. And then the benefit is, as I say, then you can start using that information going forward and shaping